And now, the only survival show to survive rubbing its mustache against an angry beehive. In this episode, we sit down with the bee whisperer, Michael Jordan. He's back to share his knowledge of beekeeping, philosophical masturbation, and life lessons. Howdy, and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode 147. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Welcome back, Michael. Man, it is so good to have you on the show again. We had so much fun last time, and it's been entirely too long. I know it was January of last year, in fact, was the last time we had you on.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to be back. I love your guys' adventures, and I always like to hear about it. One day we're going to have our own ship and sail away.
Battleship.
That's my favorite one, is the roving horde ship of pirates.
Yes. We need to, I think we're gonna bring that theme back again here maybe this season. So we'll see what we could do. But yeah, man, and I admit, I loved our episode together. Not only was it so much fun and interesting, but it was actually one of the most shared episodes we ever had. And it was also like the one episode, because we do get requests from time to time for transcripts, but when I asked people, like, okay, if we did transcripts of the show, which would be your number one show you would want that up, almost everyone said Michael Jordan on beekeeping.
I think when people hear about a fat man running with a whole bunch of angry girls naked, they go right to thinking something else other than a guy getting stung several times. And once they figure out, it's not porn, it's a dummy in an apiary. You might get tuned out after that one.
So now, speaking of which, are you still running around naked, exposing yourself to bees?
No, and I try to keep away from the nudity part, other than the fact, in a hot summer day when you work the bees, I'd be a grease fire waiting to happen. But the one thing is personal protective equipment. I was doing that filming and stuff. I was getting paid for it. Let's face the facts. But working with bees, they're the most dangerous thing on the planet that kills men. That other than men killing men, bees kill more people than any other thing on the planet, more than hippos, sharks, cattle, anything else other than other humans. So, I try to make sure everybody wears their personal protective equipment when we work with the bees.
That's wild, man. I did not know that about bees, and now that we've thoroughly scared people off from the concept of beekeeping, but we'll get into some bees in a second. But we have another follow-up from last time, which was we had some Mick Jagger male enhancement stories. We have any new bee male enhancement stories going on?
So, other than some women are using it, they're getting their lips stung for the swelling and stuff before a lot of models.
Yeah, the duck lips. Yeah,
stung to get that militant in their bloodstream and stuff to get that swelling going, so they can do some big duck faces, I guess, as a runway walker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know. Bee venom contains more than 40 pharmaceutical substances. Many of them are still being studied. The Mick Jagger thing, the gentleman, the male enhancement thing because of inflammation, it was from swelling. But, there are two things in bee sting venom that are really important, militant and peptide, I think it's 401, which is 100 times more powerful than any type of caloric steroid, that people are using it for long-term outcomes for fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, and things like that. So, I don't know about, the ladies getting their lips stung and, putting your member in a beehive to get it stung. But, there's people that are using it for some real beneficial things.
Yeah. Let's break for a quick message. Do you get at least $1 worth of value out of each ITRH episode? Did you know that would add up to roughly $4.33 worth of value you get each month or over a year from In the Rabbit Hole? Now, for as little as $2.50 a month, ITRH Roving Horde Armada members help support the work we do here. Plus, they get a whole lot more member benefits. Check it out today for yourself by visiting itrh.net to learn more. Now, back to the Bee Whisperer, Michael Jordan. So now, what is new in the world of bees?
The flow hive. Right now, beekeeping people, bees are still being lost tremendously. This last spring, this beginning year of 2015, we had such a breaking cold storm on the east coast of the United States that beekeepers lost 40% of their beekeeping.
Oh, wow.
They lost hives because of quick freeze outs. The big word to get beekeepers going is the flow hive out of Australia. Turning a dial to have honey just run out of a beehive onto your pancakes.
Mm-hmm. So now, is that more of a novelty, or is it a real productive way of keeping bees?
The invention was invented almost 79 years ago. The way the hive breaks in half and pulls out. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I remember looking up the patent numbers and stuff when I was doing an article that it was invented. The concept is over 75 years old. It's about cost. The flow hive, right now, no one even has one, and the people have made, millions of dollars. They haven't even put out a product yet, only an idea through like a Kickstarter Indigo program. So no one even has one of these products, and they're selling for about $300 to $400 plus shipping out of Australia.
Oh man, that's
so you're talking one honey box producing. It takes a while for honey to drain. It's not like water. It's a syrup. It runs slow. It takes time. Is it a big commercial thing? I've seen blueprints for stacking them on trailer trucks, and I've seen people back, I think, 30 years ago when I was looking into the cracked hives, they were using some stuff in India, and they were pumping corn sugar to the hives, and this just made it so they could harvest the corn sugar honey faster. It's like I said, it's been around a long time, and the cost of it isn't really effective right now, but as a novelty, super cool. I'll probably end up with one when somebody finally gets stung and doesn't want one, but, if you had a restaurant and you had a observation hive where the people could see the bees outside the restaurant working, and then you walked over and you just put your key in and you tapped honey and filled some jars to put on the table, I think you would have more people come to your restaurant just because of seeing the novelty. It's like going to a restaurant and see a cliff diver. Mm-hmm. The food there probably sucks, but the entertainment's awesome. So that's pretty much, I think it would be a cool novelty on that end. I think the cost of it right now, I don't think you'll see too many commercial beekeepers using it just because of cost.
Yeah. So now you talked about the loss of bees because of the cold snap. Now, what's going on with, say, colony collapse?
There's still all kinds of theories and stuff out. The number one is the nicoticides. You've had countries like Poland, France, places like that over in Europe that have banned GMO cropping and Monsanto cropping for nicotide-based pesticides and commercial crops that use it. We haven't done that here because it's such a tremendous change for us to go from monocropping to vast cropping. So, but colony collapse disorder, we're still losing bees. We're getting more beekeepers, but the bees that we're using to make packaged bees for sale are these migratory bees, and they're exposed to all kinds of stuff. And you're going to get your packaged bees. You're going to do everything you think's going on. In your second year, you think things are good. In your third year, all your bees are dead, and those bees are sick. And they've already poisoned the hive that you've got. It takes a lot of feed to promote bees to work in a bee hive. So you're feeding these sick bees, stressed queens from shipping. There's so much out there. I think colony collapse disorder is the perfect storm of poor beekeeping practices, migratory farming, and the nicotide pesticides that we use to do those farmings are the big three. And like I said, I'm trying to get kids into beekeeping. Go out and look at beekeepers' work. You're not going to see a 20-year-old man out there working bees. The gentleman out there already retired from other jobs, or they've been a beekeeper for a long time. And I think that has to contribute to the colony collapse, that people are jumping in, not really getting a mentor and working the bees, and they're just dying even faster. So you're getting even larger reports of the bees dying because of just poor beekeeping by younger beekeepers that haven't had the experience yet.
Mm-hmm. So that raises something pretty interesting. I know last time we brought you on and we talked at length about bees, and there was a tremendous amount of useful information as we talked about in the beginning. But there were some things to start with I'd like to back up and talk about more in depth. And I think what you were just saying really dovetails into that. Why do we need more beekeepers in the world?
If without them, you're going to die. I mean, that's a straight up fact. 1/3, even more than 1/3 of the food you eat comes from, beekeeping, pollination. You have fish that swim in the ocean and they eat insects, or they eat smaller fish and stuff that live on insects. And the insects eat plant life, and if you don't have reproduction of plant life, the insects die, and so do fish. If you don't repopulate clover from seeding, which is from pollination, you don't get cattle, which makes happy meals. The food production chain is tremendous. I mean, it does, 1/3, it doesn't sound much, but 1/3 this year, multiply that in 3 years, it's half of what your food is, because you're losing that food. And eventually, the apple pie mom makes, if mom baked an apple pie and you cut 1/3 of that out and threw it away, mom would be pissed. You're wasting food and stuff. I mean, we already waste food like it's going out of style here in the United States. But
yeah,
when you're losing food like that rapidly around the world, and an apple pie goes from $7 to $13, and the next thing you know, it's $18, and all of a sudden it's $36 for an apple pie. Only the elite are eating, and everybody else that we're already feeding on lower scale incomes and stuff on this poor genetically food is gone anyway, right? Because we're not going to be able to do mass monocropping, and because we can't ship the bees in, because there isn't any beekeepers keeping them to pollinate almonds and cucumbers and berries. So you lose that food production. So that's one of the major things about why you should be a beekeeper. The second most reason is probably profitability. And if you become a beekeeper, you'll probably pay back your student loan faster than you are from that doctor's degree. Anesthesiologists right now get paid a lot of money, and they're spending most of their money fighting corporations building electronic anesthesiology machines.
And their liability insurance, which is just insane. Yeah.
Well, the accidental death and stuff, by the time you pay that back, you're well into your 70s. I didn't realize, if you build slowly in beekeeping, within 10 years, you could manage a colony of bees where you're having 250 colonies, and you're producing over 4,000 to 6,000 pounds of honey. And, that's nothing to shy away from. That's good money. That's good income. That's working outdoors. That's being your own boss. Honey's a food product that's non-processed, so it's non-taxable. So you can charge what you want with no tax income because it's a non-taxable product. Beekeeping is a money-making art that feeds the world. And if we don't have beekeepers out there, we don't have trees producing oxygen, we'll die.
Yeah.
It's just a straight up fact.
I think that's something that most people in the world today don't realize about how much of our world's ecosystem, and in turn our habitat, I mean, let alone the habitat of everything else we share the planet with, but how much of that is actually kept in balance and kept going simply because bees exist and do what bees do to help basically facilitate the reproductive system of a lot of plant life.
We shipped in, I think it was 4 million beehives from Australia.
Oh, wow.
When the colony collapse just started going, about 2006, I think is when it was. And we shipped in 4 million beehives just to pollinate the almond fields. I mean, we were getting so low on the food production so that we're bringing them in from other countries to help feed our lazy food production here. I mean, let's face it, we throw away more food in the United States than some people ever see in their lifetime. And we have such a phenomenal income on making that food that we're willing to ship in a pollinator to help make more of that malicious food. Man, it's malicious. But we're willing to bring, we pay that amount of money, and you've got places in China where they're hand pollinating apple trees and pear trees. Their whole colony. This one town has nobody in it until it's time to pollinate the pear trees, and they're 25,000 strong because they got to hand pollinate all that food product. Man, it's a vast deal.
So if somebody was interested in this and they wanted to get started, how much work are bees?
You're looking at, let's calculate it down right now. You have to have 3 beehives in your yard. And I only say that so you can see what you're doing. You can have 1 beehive and you can never mess with it. That's your choice. A good beekeeper that manages a beehive is productive, not only for himself, but for the bees and for his society. So working and managing your bees helps pollinate your neighbor's garden as well, and he'll be thankful. Non-management skills, that's a bee haver, and you should have just left him in the tree. So you're going to go every 9 to 11 days to a beehive. So you're looking at a beehive or these 3 beehives at least twice to 3 times a month, and you're going to be spending about 2 hours of your time. So you're looking at about 6 to 8 hours in a month that you'll be working these 3 beehives to be productive, and for them not to swarm on you, and for them to be acclimated on how you're working the bees. And that's only going to be for the warmest spells of your year. In my area of Wyoming, we're only looking at 5 months of me working 8 hours each month. If you're down where you are in Texas, you're going to have probably 2 extra months to 3 extra months. If you're down in Argentina, you're going to be beekeeping year-round.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When you get on that Mediterranean belt, that equator belt where it's going to be 80 degrees year-round, you're going to have maybe wet days of inclement weather, but it's going to be where the bees can work, and you have floral all the time. You're going to be working all the time. Yeah, I got 5 months of snow, man. So I get good vacation time for me.
Yeah. So that's like basically nothing. I mean, that's less time than a lot of people will spend on most common hobbies, even.
Yeah, and you just said it. That's hobby beekeeping. A backyard beekeeper has 3 to 5 beehives in his backyard. That's a backyard beekeeper. A hobby beekeeper tries to make some money back in his art, right? It's an art to him now, right? It's like a stamp collector. You're getting more vast and more financial investment into it, and you're going to try to trade some of your lower investment off to make money. And that's in beekeeping as a hobbyist, is that you're going to grow to 25 to even to maybe 200 hives and try to make that into an income for you. A commercial beekeeper is a gentleman that runs 500 to 1,000 beehives. An industrial beekeeper is a guy that has 10,000 beehives to 70,000 beehives. So if you're going to be the little backyard beekeeper with 3 beehives and you're spending 8 hours a month, each beehive produces you 60 pounds. That's 100. You're looking at, that's a good haul of honey. Just for you to be there at your house that you can make some mead with. You can make some gifts for Christmas. That's probably enough wax to make lip balm for the year, as well as watertighting your boots and tents for the summer. It's a good little hobby to get into. Your food production goes up for 30% in your garden because of it. So if you have a little micro orchard where you got apples and all of a sudden you're at the farmer's market, you just boosted that crop for more money. Now, the backyard beekeeper doesn't spend much time, but you have to be constant. You can't I missed a couple days. 3 days in beekeeping, your bees swarm and you lose the majority of your hive and half your honey flow because they leave and they're going to take it with them. So, if you're, it's a hobby that you have to be pretty reliable about.
That's actually interesting. That a question, essentially a listener question I have for you in just a bit. But coming back to this, and I think we touched on this a bit last time, but how realistic is it for someone in an urban environment in say the kind of typical eighth to quarter acre lot to actually get into beekeeping, even at what you were saying at the kind of the 3 hive level, or even if it's just 1 hive or something?
I think it's super easy. You have to go with the big three. You have to learn your laws, right? You need to know your state law, your county law, your city law. You need to learn your HOA, whatever you're in. You need to learn the law to see if you can have these bees because they're a noxious insect. Once you find out you can have them, or if you're going to keep them, even you're not supposed to, if you're going to get bees, make sure that if you get stung, it's not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then you need to find out your budget. That you're going to have these 3 beehives. Am I going to go top bar? Am I going to go War A? Am I going to go Langstroth? Am I going to ship in some sun hives? Am I going to do a double drum cut and modify and make my own? You need to know what your budget's going to be and stick to your budget because the first round of this is going to be your one-time cost. So don't squinch on it. If you're going to buy 3 beehives, buy 3 beehives. Don't buy 1 beehive and then 1 top bar beehive and then I got a War A hive because none of them go together and you just wasted all your money and you're not going to really enjoy it as a hobby. So get your budget set on what you're going to do, see if you can keep them and if they're going to kill you or not. And then that's the big 3. Once you guys get your budgets and that you can keep these bees, find a mentor, go to a beekeeping class, get on bee blogs, hit up some podcasts, watch some YouTube, but get familiarized with some of the terminology that people are going to be spouting at you and see what's going on in the world when it comes to beekeeping. Because once you make this investment, it's like any agricultural business. You don't want to keep on buying cows. You want to learn how to breed cows. You don't want to keep buying chickens to lay eggs. You want to be able to breed chickens so you can have eggs. Once you get into that, then it's building your management skills. How many days are you going to go out? What days are you going to go out? What are we doing this week? Are we doing queenings and splits? Or are we doing hive rotation and frame rotation? Those are just how you start working into beekeeping. And it's the first initial cost is going to be about $1,500 your first year. In your second year, you're going to probably spend $200. Your third year, hopefully you've got it to where you're not buying a packaged bees to replace whatever you've lost. Hopefully you're learning how to catch your own swarms or make your beehives supersede so you're expanding and growing. And once you learn how to make your beehives grow, you're going to start selling beehives to other people because you're going to have a lot of them. If you're a good beekeeper, you're going to be making money selling not honey, you're going to be selling bees because that's the largest commodity right now, selling bees.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something there that was last time you were on. You mentioned like having huge financial losses and stuff, and you were getting into sounded like some pretty big beekeeping ventures, and that begs the question, which you were touching on a second ago. But what is really the ideal minimum investment someone could expect to make if they were going to be, and whether they're an urban beekeeper or whether suburban or rural beekeeper?
Set aside $1,000. That's going to get you 2 to 3 beehives on the cheap. It's going to get your packaged bees and some protective equipment, right? And a couple books, and you might be able to pay to go to the Wyoming Bee College one year and get some really good information so you can get into about $1,000 is going to get you started. And don't do what I did. Anything, this being a steward of the land is what you need to be. It doesn't matter if you're raising rabbits, cattle, whatever you do. If you're going to be a blacksmith, falconers, I think, are the smartest people. You have to take 2 years as an apprentice for a falconer and then work 2 years with a captured bird that you captured before you can even become a falconer. Right? And I think some of that stewardship is what makes it. My first year, I dumped $10,000. And by the end of the year, I already had another $10,000 in it because I was buying bees. In 3 years, I had $75,000 invested and still losing bees because I was just buying bees and and not managing them and just trying to make them produce honey because I wanted to make mead. And don't just jump in on a large scale to get going. I bought out a guy's business that had 200 hives when I was going. So there I had 500 of mine start, and I bought another 200 and didn't know what I was looking for, and they were sick. So I lost money buying sick hives because the guy was getting out, and I didn't know what I was looking at. So, get in really slow. Don't, it's supposed to be a hobby. I was going in it to be a commercial beekeeper. When it was all said and done, I became a commercial beekeeper. And then I didn't want to do that. I wanted to teach kids, and I wanted to travel and see other beekeeping methods and stuff. And my partner wanted to be a pollinator and make that big money. And once you get a taste of how that big billionaire bee money is, you'll hang out with that billionaire club, man. So it's about getting started on a small scale and work your way up, because bees are $1 billion industry. A beehive rents for $200 a month to pollinate fields.
Does it really?
Yeah, man. That's all you have to do is get them there. Cotton fields, right? Making cotton to make clothing. If you don't have those fields pollinated, we don't get cotton. Right? Those guys pay money to have people pollinate. That's money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big business, bigger than honey sales. Honey is the lowest margin on it. Packaged bee sales and then pollination is what makes money in beekeeping. It'll make you a billionaire in a matter of years.
Wow. And you brought up something interesting there, talking about the troubles that you ran into in the beginning. What bee catastrophes have you experienced since the last time we spoke? Now, I know that seems like kind of an odd question perhaps, but I find that we learn the most from our failures and disasters than we do our successes.
One of my biggest catastrophes, you got to wear protective equipment. I think that's the one thing that I've learned. It started out as all fun and games, and it's an extreme sport, man. It's like jumping out of an airplane. Mm-hmm. Is your chute going to open? You don't know. That's the risk, right? I had this really cool idea. It's called a bee sled. And you have bee swarms in the air in a tree. And I figured, instead of putting up ladders or getting scaffolding and buying scissorless and stuff, I got this, I think it was 32-foot long piece of sheet metal. And it's long, and we kind of bent it so it was like a U. So it's 30-foot long U piece of roofing sheet metal. We put it in the air on 2 sticks, so it was a sled. And I figured we'd just shake that tree, and the bees would fall on that sled and slide right down and into the beehive. Oh, man, that sounds super cool, right? You're not cutting tree limbs, you're not climbing up and down, you're just going to shake the tree. So I'm getting everything set up, and I accidentally knocked the side of the tree as I'm getting set up, and a whole swarm of bees falls on my head and down my shirt. And, that's like 5 pounds of bees. That's roughly 30,000 bees crawling all over you in your shirt. I think I got stung like 52 times, 57 times. It was a super disaster. Trying to come up with this really cool sled idea. I think, I had diarrhea for 2 days.
Oh, God,
so, Josiah has it on film. He thought it was like the craziest thing he ever saw. We ended up making it happen, and we got it on film finally, where the bees just slide down and right into a beehive, and we closed it all up, and it looks really super cool on film. But the first time was just an utter disaster. Wear your protective equipment. I remove bees. I just grab them out. Sometimes I forget to put on my stuff because I've worked with them so long and I'm so comfortable with working with them. But, man, one of the biggest disasters and catastrophes I think anybody's going to face, and the one that I always face, is wear a veil, right? Wear something that keeps them out of your face. Getting stung on the eye, the lip, the tip of the nose is like the worst thing in the world to get stung by. It swells up the end of your nose like Rudolph, and you always want to touch it, and it hurts all the way back to your ears. It's terrible. Yeah, wear your protective equipment. That's what I've learned from all this.
That's a good lesson. Probably not definitely not a very fun lesson, but a good lesson for anyone getting into it. Because I think a lot of times we see some of these like really old beekeepers that just walk in and are able to to kind of play with the bees and deal with the bees with no protective suit on. And it looks like the bees are just in love with the beekeeper. And that actually brings me up to something that I was going to ask you about. I've heard you mention this a few times on both on our shows and on other shows and stuff like that. But you've mentioned over and over that at a certain point, beekeepers can get to a place where the bees actually choose the keeper. What is that all about, and what do you attribute it to?
Bees see the humble being in everything. The honeybee smells fear like a shark smells a drop of blood in the ocean, miles away. When you're scared and when you're upset, the bees feel it. In my Jurassic nature, I truly believe that there's a little bit of everything in everybody, that there's some of me in the trees around me, there's a little bit of me and you, there's a little bit of you and all. All of us make one supreme being. If we all could come together, that would be all of us, but we're all broken apart to make everything in this universe. And I believe that the bees sense the beekeeper in you, that when you see the older beekeepers working them, that's because now they've let their inner beekeeper completely out there. They have no fear. They know what the bees like. They know what the bees don't like. They know how to work with the bees, and the bees know how to work with those beekeepers. Old men rubbing their mustaches across the frames of bees is just amazing, right? When you're watching it, you're scared crapless because you see what they're doing. But those guys have found their inner bee, that their inner freedom. They're no longer scared of anything. They're the Jedi Knight. You can throw anything at me, and we just deal with it, and it's okay to be that way. And I think the bees see the inner child. My son was very young, and he plays with the bees. He catches them, puts his eye up to the hive to see inside, and they crawl over his face and everywhere. He sticks them on the trash man to run him off. They truly believe that eventually, working with the bees, you become a true humanitarian. Like I said, you're working with the most deadliest thing that Mother Nature could have put out there that kills man. It kills man. And we've even made it more deadlier by making it Africanized, where it swarms faster, breeds faster, stings harder. Right? It's the most deadliest thing you're going to play with. And these guys are out there without any shirts and shoes on, flipping the hive apart, pulling out honeycomb and eating it fresh, thanking the bees. And you have to be one with yourself. And I truly believe that the bees pick those out, because I know they don't pick me, because I get the crap stung out of me some days. So I know that I've worked with some guys. 20 beehives. It takes me 3 hours to work through. I've watched these guys work 50 beehives, and in an hour they're done. They check for mites, dysentery, hive beetles. They're going through a hive, they're checking queens, they're marking queens, they're singing along, and they're having a great day outside. And, as a beekeeper, I think those are some things that you want to get into, is to be humanitarian, is to find your inner bee, to find your inner love for being outside. And I'm working with the most dangerous thing Mother Nature could throw at me, and we're working together. That they're pollinating my food, and I'm making sure they have a good, clean home to live in. Those are some of the aspects that I think when you see beekeepers, and that's why some of them are so good.
I think that even kind of speaks to something else, that because you are the bee whisperer, but I also like to think of you as the humble bee whisperer. And last time you were on, you mentioned something interesting someone said to you. You showed up to a seminar, and the guy teaching it asked why you weren't teaching, and you told him you weren't making it happen. And he asked when the last time was you put things actually into practice. And it sounded like this was fairly early on in your beekeeping career. And I think that speaks a lot to the value of just getting the hell out there and doing stuff. We can often get trapped in a place of, intellectual masturbation, but it's really intellectual procrastination. Do you think people do this perhaps to just avoid failure, or even to avoid out of, hey, I really like bees, but bees are kind of scary, like we were just talking about, thinking, number one killer of man in the world. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that people do it all the time. They envy the guy that can do it. There's always the old saying, those of us that can't do it, teach it. And those of us that can't teach it are doing it. They forgot the one guy that doesn't care. He just does whatever he can. My grandfather told me, he says, you can do anything you want in this world. You can be anything you want. You just may not be as good as everybody else doing it. And I think that's what people do, that procrastination master, whatever. I think that they're scared and they think they overanalyze everything because they want it to be perfect. And let's face it, if it was perfect, Mother Nature would have did it and none of us would have got involved in it. I think you're right. I think people, it's not that they're scared to get involved into anything. It's just that they're afraid to fail. That, I built my raised beds and you guess what? I forgot to put stakes on the side of it and the side blew out, dude. Totally blew out 3 yards of my dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And no one wants to tell their neighbor that. They want to talk about, yeah, man, I was growing great squash this year, man. It was awesome in my raised. No one wants to hear about that they had to spend an extra day putting the sides on.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know that? Because I spent an extra day putting sides on them. I mean, I'm prone to fail. That's called Irish luck. When you have, people come to your country, rape all your people, steal all that you have, and you go through a potato famine, you're not real lucky. Yeah. And that's what I've also learned in life is that no one is born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And sometimes, you have to be the junkyard warrior. You have to go out to the pick and pull. You have to pull your own starter out of a car. And you have to go home and you have to put it in. Because taking it to the garage is going to cost you $500. And removing it out of this Daihatsu car is going to cost you $50 and 3 hours of your time. What do you got? I think people are afraid to fail. No one wants to be labeled a loser. No one likes to be called fat. And no one likes to be called slow. But let's face it, man, there's only 10% of us in the world that have IQs over 187. And the rest of us are ditch diggers, baby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people are afraid of is that, the world needs ditch diggers, man. I work as a custodian. If I don't show up one day, the trash piles up. It starts to stink. The rats come. And the next thing you know, we're getting a thing of plague. And now I'm the lowest guy on the food chain. Without me, you guys are going to get plague. Everybody has a duty, and you just got to jump in there and get stung, or you got to get in there and you got to get your feet dirty. And sometimes you're stretching wire, and it does snap, and it cuts your arm. I mean, you learn. Mm-hmm. That's how you learn. Is you got to. People procrastinate because they're afraid to fail. And failure is the most biggest learning aspect you'll ever get.
Absolutely. So going off of that, somebody gets off the fence, gets off their butt and starts doing it. How long does it really take for somebody to actually become productive with bees? Giving a little allowance for screw ups and stuff like that.
3 years. I think 3 years. If you're working your bees and you're going to some meetings and you're talking to some guys on the phone, I answer every single one of my emails, every single one of them. I don't care what your question. There is no such thing as a dumb question. There's only a crappy answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I answer all kinds. If you're going to get in there in 3 years, if you're working them, if you're going out there and you're checking your problems and you're winterizing your beehives and you're feeding them, the number one thing that people do not do as a new beekeeper is feed their bees. I think feeding the bees and winterizing your bees is the number one thing to do. Beekeeping is a form of animal husbandry. You have to feed your livestock. You have to breed them. You have to have return surplus to them. That's cows, rabbits. You just can't put them in a box and leave them. But after 3 years, you can walk away from them, and they should work themselves, right? Are you going to be massively productive? No, they'll probably swarm a lot. And, eventually you'll probably have to put a new hive out for them to swarm into because that one's going to get old over a 6 to 8 year time period where they're not going to think it's formidable for them to live in. But, in 3 years, you're going to be able to watch them grow. You're going to watch them swarm. You're going to watch your honey productions go up and down. And you're going to see the floral blooming charts of your year. You're going to see the seasons that you're going to go through. you know what it's going to cost to feed if you have to. I think 3 years is a good time span. And in 3 years, like I said, you're going to dump $1,000 your first year, 200 your second, and probably another 200 your third year. And that's probably to requeen because you don't know really got the grasp of it yet. Or you're buying a new package bees because you might have found a good genetic line that's working in your area better. I think 3 years is a good time span to look at how you're doing.
And something you said a moment ago may speak to this, but now is a perfect time to bring up the listener question because I think it does dovetail into this. Someone had gotten to the point where they had learned enough that they constructed a hive. They captured wild bees, put them in the box, and then the next day they were gone. What would you think that's attributed to? I know that's a very limited amount of information, but what would you...
Girls are picky.
Yeah, girls are picky.
Let's face it, man. Girls are, I'm married to one. She's picky. Girls like pretty things, and they like things aesthetically looking cool. They like good smells. If you're gonna get bees, you should start out in a small box to let them populate really good. And if the bees are leaving, I have bees that leave some of my hives too. They just don't feel like the housing is formidable that's good for them. That we're not moving into this crap hole, man. And bees do not like brand new things all the time either. They like buying a used home that's been well taken care of. A brand new box, you're going to have to add some lemongrass oil into it to get rid of that smell that there's been a queen in there before. Sometimes you put in some frames that already have some foundation built into them from another beekeeper and stuff, so it looks like there's been something here before, so it must have been a home that was good. Right? Just dumping a wild swarm of bees, they're already used to a semi-dirty floor, right, where the wood chips have fallen down out of the trunk of the tree to the bottom of the trunk of the tree. Right? So the bottom of the floor isn't a flat bottom board. It's a little rocky. It's got some bugs maybe crawling through it. They're kind of picky, but they're girls. So lemongrass oil, put it inside the beehive. Some people put it in a cotton ball. I say melt some wax down and just add it to the wax so the wax has a permeating smell all the time. Those are things that make it more hospitable to draw, Make it clean, make it nice, but make it so it looks like you live in it. And they'll come, they'll live there.
If bees really scare people, but they still want to get into it, what do you suggest? Are there alternatives to the typical honeybee?
Watch TV. No, I think that your best bet is to look at other alternatives in beekeeping for mason bees. They're a mud daubing bee. They make all their homes out of mud. They do not produce any honey, but they're 30% more pollinator than the honeybee. You can get these new boxes. They're eco bumblebee boxes, and they're using them in greenhouses. The bumblebee doesn't fly very far because he's too fat, and scientifically he's not supposed to be able to fly at all.
Mm-hmm.
So they're easier to watch and control. To have bees for honey, you have to have honeybees. And if you get stung and they kill you, you don't get them. If you're looking for pollination, mason bees are good, bumblebees are good. If you're looking to get in it without any bees at all and you want to help beekeepers, you don't use pesticides, you don't use fertilizers, you try to do as much natural beekeeping, or you try to do as much natural planting as you can. In your natural beekeeping, you try to use natural feeds and foods to go with those bees that you're using, such as if you're using mason bees, you're going to work a sugar solution just like you would honeybees. If you're doing bumblebees, you're going to try to get more nectar flow and try to plant a lot more weeds, such as dandelions and thistles for them. If you don't want any type of bee at all, plant bee balm, plant sourwood, plant as much as you can, every place you can. Feel free to roll seeds in clay, and when you're walking through your local parks, throw them everywhere. Feed the bees, any kind of natural thing. Bees fly up to 2 miles for food production and have been known to go 5 miles eating some of their nectar to get home in. So they'll go far. Just plant as much as you can and try to be as nice as you can. right? No pesticides. But beekeeping, to get bees and think you're not going to get stung, that's a fool's errand.
Yeah, and that was funny. You actually ended up answering some of their questions I had for you as far as helping to produce an environment for bees if someone didn't necessarily want to keep bees themselves, but wanted to help the bee population. So that was really cool. Going on to sustainability, it's something that it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And I know we talked about it a little bit last time as far as sustainable beekeeping. Walk us through that. And what is that in kind of the big 30,000 foot view, or as detailed as you want to get? What does that really mean when we say something should be sustainable?
Sustainable means reoccurring. If your farm's here one day and it's gone the next from foreclosure, that's not sustainable. Sustainable is being here the next time, right? So in beekeeping, we're going right back to animal husbandry. That if you're not learning to feed your bees, proper feeding things to keep them healthy, you're not going to be sustainable. If you're not learning how to queen, to make those bees repopulate themselves, that's the form of animal husbandry, you're not going to be sustainable. You'll have to learn how to adjust your colonies by removing bees and adding bees to them. That's just like over farming a field or not farming it enough to its potential. That you have to learn that if the bees are way too many in a hive and there's not enough room for them, you have to remove them out of there or they will swarm, taking half your bee stock and half your honey stock to a new location that you cannot control. Being sustainable is learning how to populate yourself on a low budget interest to be there again the next time. Income management for budgeting. That's the one thing that we're not teaching our kids in any aspect is how to be a citizen, to be a living structure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where do you get your food from? Well, I get it from McDonald's. Where do you get your bee food at? I buy it from this company. Right? That's not being sustainable. Sustainable is that where do you get most of your food? I grow it out of my garden by planting seeds, cloning those plants, or making them seed themselves again, greenhousing those seeds to make a production to where I replant them for next year. See, that's sustainable beekeeping, right? I'm going to take these bees, I'm going to populate them by feeding them a good natural food source by either juicing watermelons, currants and choke cherries, or apples, adding it to a little bit of water, honey, and chamomile tea, which I can grow on my own place, which is a high sugar source, which I make. I'm not buying it. I'm feeding these bees yet, and they're populating to a higher amount to where I either need to split them to either grow more beehives, or I'm going to split them and sell them, which is now an income where if I need to buy feed next time, it's more sustainable for me. All right, those are sustainability markers that people need to get into, is learning how to feed, how to split and requeen hives, how to look for the pests and inoculants that could kill your bees. Beekeeping is an art, but it is an agricultural business, and it comes with, floral charts that you need to know when your floral arrangements are, because if you don't have floral this month, it may be 80 degrees outside, but if we don't have any flowers those bees don't eat, that means it costs me money or my time to make sure those bees make it. If we have a wet or cold spring, I need to make sure what kind of feed I'm using, because if the bee feed's frozen, they're not going to eat it. You need to learn different feeding measures. Mentorship and location of where you're at. I mean, there's a lot to it. It's just not putting bees in a box. It's a scientific art. It's just like raising cattle, raising emus, right? Those are great hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it takes a skill, and you have to learn. I mean, you have to learn to be sustainable is repopulation on your own berry. I think that's the only way I can say that you're going to be there the next time. Non-sustainable is you're not going to be there the next time.
Mm-hmm. Man, that was an awesome explanation. So now, that comes back to something else that you brought up last time, which was that you were designing your own hive. What's the status of that? Where did you end up with that?
Ooh, I got talked to by a gentleman that looks for people for Shark Tank and looks for people's inventions, and told me that without a patent number on it, he says that it will be grabbed up immediately. And then I was told by another beekeeper that the beekeeping that I was doing with my beehive would industrialize beekeeping at a far greater rate, and we would lose the stewardship. That I made a beehive that you could just dump the bees on the ground and leave and walk away. It was made for pollination.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know what I was doing. It was really simple and easy for the beekeeper. It folded up and you could store it. And I made it so you could store this beehive. It compressed together. You put it on a shelf, and then when you got packages of bees, you expanded it, dumped the bees in. They built frame and comb, and you pollinated the field. And when the almond field was done, you could just dump out the bees and leave. So I kind of put that clear on the back burner where I can look at that. Making a beehive that I was doing, and I don't think it was in the best interest for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the money anymore. It's money. I can make money. Money's easy to make. It's all got blood on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the problem. It's about the stewardship and doing something that's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of stewardship, you've been, and you pardon the pun, a busy bee yourself, and you've been doing a lot of stuff with Jack Spirko and the TSP Farmstead and Perma Ethos and all kinds of stuff. Tell us about that for a bit, because, man, you have been busy.
After getting back into beekeeping heavily, and I reduced all my stuff down to where it's manageable in a little homestead at my house, I've been teaching these small classes. And I went down to Jack's place. We got him set up with 3 beehives. He's producing a little bit of honey in Texas. He's got a good mentor, Jason Smith, and he's working on that program, and it's working for him. He liked it. We talked about some things. I went to West Virginia, did a couple classes there. We found some people there that are beekeeping, that are good beekeepers like Jason Smith in Texas was, that were teaching these aspects and they're using it. The beekeeping that I teach is you write your own book, and it's been so successful. I've done it for orphanages. I wrote things for 4-H groups, and that's how I kind of got discovered. Was I was making sustainability into beekeeping where it could be a productive level for orphanages and third world countries. And now I've got picked up to Josiah has come out with Perma Ethos, and we're building a beekeeping course for them. It's an interactive bee design course, is what they're calling it, the BDC, the Beekeepers Design Course. And it's got 10 modules for the first go around, which is basically a lesson every month. And you go through it, it builds your beekeeping, and you design your book for your climate, your altitude, your location, your floral charts, your laws. It goes through everything. The course has been really good. People have been calling me, and I get booked up after. In fact, I'm booked up next year that we're going to Permaculture Voices again. I've got the Wyoming Bee College that we go to and teach at. I'm going to be going to Tennessee next year for a gentleman to teach him how to do miller queening and splitting methods so he can repopulate his bee yard, and he's looking to have a class. Of course, there's always West Virginia at the Perma Ethos Farms, where we teach different kinds of beekeeping, from how to make mead, lip balm, facial creams, to how to extract larvae out so you can start making your own queens. I've got a guy in Pennsylvania that's looking to open up his farm. And that's the one big thing that I didn't really realize, that even beekeepers that already have apiaries have looked at some of the stuff we're doing, and they're asking us to come in and redesign their location for best sun use, how to put the weight instruments in the hive so you can weigh the beehive now to see population growth and honey growth. The beekeeping course has actually sprung quite a bit over the last 2 years since working with the TSP network.
Dude, that is so awesome to hear. And when is that course going to come available for people?
Well, we're hoping to open it up for people to start purchasing the course in October of this year. And in 2016 of January 2016, we're going to open up the first module. And that way we can start going about it. And we're going to be working, we've had 2 years of film footage that we'll be putting in, but we're going to be working it with you. So you're going to see us do it with you. I mean, there's going to be other footage from other things as we go, but we're going to be building it. When we put our package bees in and we say we're going to check it on this day, when you tune in, you're going to see what actually 9 days looks like, and you're going to be able to compare it to your 9-day installation. The course is set up that you're going to see it, and then after it's all said and done, if you didn't catch it this first round, you'll be able to pull out different modules that you want. That if you want to get the module on how to requeen, you can pay for that module. You don't have to buy the whole course and pull it out. But if you take the whole course, you'll get a beekeeping certificate from us. And I know beekeepers all over the world looking for good beekeepers. Ben in Australia, the largest package beekeeper in the world, that always is hiring people. Always wants beekeepers to come to Australia and to help him package bees for sale. So this is like a course that you can take that's not entomology based. This is strictly our practitioner and internship on a beekeeper, not entomology.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's really amazing stuff. So how do people keep up with you? How do they connect with you? And how do they get into all this stuff? And also, of course, find out when this course comes or get notified when this course becomes available.
You can always email me at abfriendlycompany@gmail.com and just invite me that you have a meadery that you're going to pay for me to come and drink your mead, and I'll be right there. That's one of the things we're working on right now is we're traveling around and we're showing meaderies that they're very few and far between, and we're hoping that a television show picks us up on that. But if you get me on abfriendlycompany.com, abfriendlycompany Gmail, and you can always get me on Facebook. I think that's the highest multimedia base out there that you can leave me a message. I'll probably get back to you. You can see some of the stuff that we do, that I have my personal Facebook there that's open to the public that you can look at, or I have AB Friendly Company's Facebook site there that you can get on, leave a message, show us your photos. We love watching videos of your kids beekeeping. And I think that's like the coolest thing because that's the most natural, the innocence of kids saying and doing stuff. Yeah, Facebook, man, we'll share all your information. We love to share information.
Very cool. Now, to be clear, so that nobody gets confused, that's A, B, like the insect bee, not just A, the letter B. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's ABEE Friendly Company, all one word, AB Friendly Company.
All right, man. Well, as always, I sure appreciate having you on. It's so good to talk to you again, and I'm looking forward to the next time already.
Oh, I am too, and I love the roving horde.
Thanks again, Michael.
You bet. We'll talk to you again.
There's a ton of resources and links from this episode. They can be found at intherabbithole.com/E147. Do you get at least $1 worth of value out of each ITRH episode? Did you know that would add up to roughly $4.33 worth of value you get each month or over a year from In the Rabbit Hole? Now, for as little as $2.50 a month, ITRH Roving Horde Armada members help support the work we do here. Plus, they get a whole lot more member benefits. Check it out today for yourself by visiting itrh.net to learn more. Again, that's itrh.net. That wraps up episode number 147 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.